Ethan Carter walked through the palace courtyard, taking in the gentle hum of Zithara's evening life. Despite the danger that still lingered over the planet, there was a strange calm in the air tonight. Citizens moved along the glowing pathways, children played among the soft, luminescent plants, and the distant towers of the city shimmered in the light of the setting suns. Ethan's body had mostly healed, but the ache from his previous injuries reminded him that battle had a lasting mark, both on the body and on the mind. Princess Lyra joined him, her silver hair catching the fading light. "You shouldn't be out here yet," she said gently, concern in her violet eyes. "The medic said you need to rest." Ethan smiled faintly. "Rest is for after we survive what's coming. Right now, I need to understand what we're up against." Lyra studied him for a moment. "You are different from any human I have ever known. Most would be cautious, afraid to step outside. You face danger head-on." Ethan shrugged. "Maybe it's not bravery. Maybe it's understanding what's worth fighting for. The rogue army isn't just attacking. They want to destroy everything you've built." "I can't sit still while that happens," Lyra nodded. "And yet you still think like a strategist, not just a fighter." That's what surprises everyone, the combination of courage and intellect. Even the Queen seems unsettled by it. Ethan glanced toward the palace. The faint glow of the Queen's observation chamber marked her presence. Queen Elira had been quietly observing him for days now, and while she rarely interfered directly, her influence was always felt. Her curiosity about humans, especially him, was growing, and Ethan knew it. The thought made him uneasy, though not for the reasons one might expect. "We need to prepare," Ethan said. "We need to predict their moves, understand their strengths, and find weaknesses. They may be powerful, but they aren't invincible. No army ever is." Lyra followed him as he entered the strategy room. Zitharan generals and advisors were already gathered, discussing troop placements and defensive structures. The room hummed with activity, screens displaying maps, data streams, and tactical readings. Ethan felt a strange sense of focus wash over him. This was his element: problem-solving under pressure, assessing threats, and planning for survival. "Ethan Carter," one of the generals said, his tone cautious, "we have observed your methods, but some of your suggestions, they are unconventional. They break tradition." Ethan met the general's gaze steadily. "Tradition is useful, but it can also blind you. The rogue army is flexible, unpredictable. If we rely only on what's familiar, we will fail. We need to adapt or we will be crushed." Elira's voice, calm yet commanding, interrupted. "Let him speak. Let us hear what the human sees that we do not." Ethan took a deep breath and explained his plan. It was a combination of human ingenuity and the Zitharan's technological advantage. He suggested using decoy units, creating traps along predictable paths, and setting ambush points in areas the enemy would not expect. He emphasized the use of mobility, speed, and the element of surprise, tools often overlooked by a culture that valued strength and precision above all else. The generals listened, some skeptical, some intrigued. As Ethan spoke, Lyra noticed the subtle shift in their demeanor. They were considering ideas they had never dared to voice, and she realized that human thinking was unlike anything she had encountered. It was instinctive, adaptive, and fearless in a way that Zitharans rarely allowed themselves to be. Queen Elira observed quietly from her seat at the head of the table. Ethan's suggestions were bold, daring, and slightly reckless by Zitharan standards, yet they made sense. She found herself leaning forward, unconsciously drawn into his thought process. For the first time in decades, she saw a strategy that did not rely solely on hierarchy, tradition, or brute force. This human, small and fragile in appearance, possessed a mind capable of shifting the fate of an entire kingdom. After hours of discussion, a tentative plan emerged. Ethan would lead a small strike team to set up ambush points and gather intelligence, while the main Zitharan forces prepared defensive lines in the capital. Lyra insisted on accompanying him, refusing to let her protector face danger alone. Ethan was hesitant at first, but he knew that she was trained, capable, and determined. He could not stop her, and besides, having her there would boost morale and symbolize unity to the troops. The following day, they set out under the cover of early morning fog. The air was crisp, and the faint glow from Zithara's flora lit their path. Ethan moved silently, assessing the terrain, predicting enemy movements, and coordinating with the small team of Zitharan soldiers under his command. He noticed subtle details, the way the fog hung heavier in certain valleys, the sounds of distant movement, the patterns of wildlife that could signal danger. Every instinct honed from years of human training came into play. Lyra walked beside him, her movements precise and careful. "You notice everything," she said quietly. "Even things I would never see." Ethan glanced at her. "You notice details too, Princess. You just focus on different things. Together we see more." As they approached a narrow pass, Ethan halted. "Stop," he whispered. "Listen." The group fell silent. From the rocks above, faint shadows moved, scouts from the rogue army. Ethan signaled to the team, setting positions that would allow them to strike from unexpected angles. "We wait for the right moment," he said. "Patience is as important as courage." Minutes passed, tension thick in the air. Then with a silent signal, Ethan led the ambush. The Zitharan soldiers moved with swift precision, and Ethan coordinated the attack flawlessly, using terrain, timing, and strategy to outmaneuver the enemy scouts. Within moments, the ambush was complete. Enemy forces were scattered, and Ethan's team emerged unharmed. Lyra watched in awe. "You make it look easy," she whispered. Ethan shook his head. "It's never easy. You just make sure you do it right." They returned to the capital with valuable intelligence. Ethan debriefed the generals and shared his observations. His analysis revealed weaknesses in the rogue army's formation, the likely routes of their main force, and potential vulnerabilities in their supply lines. The Zitharans were impressed, but more importantly, they began to trust his judgment in ways they had never trusted any outsider before. That evening, as the sun dipped below the jagged horizon, Ethan found himself walking through the palace gardens again. Lyra joined him, silent at first, as if weighing her words carefully. "You've changed how we think," she said softly. "The generals, the advisors, even the queen. Your presence here has shifted everything." Ethan looked at her. "I'm just trying to help. That's all I know how to do." Lyra smiled faintly. "And yet it's more than just helping. You've shown us something new about ourselves. Courage is one thing, but seeing it combined with strategy and selflessness, it's rare." Ethan felt a strange warmth in his chest. He had faced death on this planet, protected a princess, and now he was earning respect from one of the galaxy's most powerful rulers. Yet he remained grounded. "It's not about me. It's about what needs to be done." "That's the difference." Lyra nodded, understanding more than he expected. "You are unlike anyone I've ever met, Ethan Carter. I don't think we've seen the last of what you can do for this world, or for us." Meanwhile, Queen Aelira had not left her observation chamber. From there she watched every movement, every interaction. Ethan's courage, intelligence, and humility unsettled her more than she cared to admit. He was a human, fragile in appearance. Yet he possessed qualities that challenged her assumptions about power, loyalty, and leadership. She began to consider the implications. What if humans like him were rare but necessary? What if the survival of her people, the stability of her kingdom, depended on this one human? Days turned into nights, and the rogue army's attacks grew more frequent and daring. Ethan continued to work with the Zitharans, training soldiers in tactics that combined human unpredictability with Zitharan precision. Each skirmish tested him, tested them, and each victory strengthened trust between humans and Zitharans. Ethan's reputation spread beyond the palace walls, and whispers of the human who fought with courage and intellect reached even distant settlements. Lyra remained at his side whenever possible, learning, assisting, and observing. She asked questions about Earth, about human culture, and about the principles that guided him. In turn, Ethan learned more about Zitharan customs, history, and the weight of leadership in their world. They shared moments of quiet understanding, laughter, and strategy, building a bond founded on respect, trust, and shared purpose. One evening, as they overlooked the city from a high balcony, Lyra spoke again. "Ethan, you've done more than protect me. You've inspired us all. The Queen sees it, the generals see it. Even the citizens see it. You are changing Zithara just by being yourself." Ethan sighed, leaning on the railing. "I never wanted to change a world. I just wanted to survive, protect, and do what's right. If that changes anything, then I suppose it's a consequence I'll accept." Lyra smiled softly. "You're not just surviving, Ethan. You're proving something important, that one human can make a difference even in the most alien of worlds. You're showing us what humans are capable of." And in that quiet moment, with the glowing city beneath them and the three suns dipping toward the horizon, Ethan understood something he had only begun to realize. Courage, intelligence. Ethan woke slowly, the pale light of the palace room filtering through tall crystal windows. His body ached in every joint and muscle, a dull reminder of the attack that had almost taken his life. Medics moved quietly around him, their touch gentle but precise, using alien technology that mended tissue and slowed pain far faster than anything on Earth. He watched them with quiet fascination, impressed by how advanced the Zetherin's healing methods were. Despite the technology, however, the ache in his side refused to vanish completely, and he knew recovery would take time. Princess Lyra entered the room, her movements careful and deliberate. She carried no weapons, no guards, only her presence, which was more commanding than any army. Ethan turned his head slightly to look at her. "I wasn't expecting a visit," he said, forcing a small smile. Lyra smiled faintly, though her eyes held a seriousness that made Ethan sit up a little straighter. "I wanted to see how you were," she said softly. "I owe you more than I can say." Ethan waved a hand. "Don't worry about it. Just doing what anyone should. I only hope I was in time." His voice sounded steadier than he felt. She studied him for a moment, as if weighing his words. Then she sat down near the edge of his bed, careful not to crowd him. "I've never seen anyone fight like that. Not even my own guards. Not even my own warriors. You were fearless." Ethan looked away, trying to hide the way her words made his chest tighten. "I wasn't fearless. I was just focused. Someone had to protect you. I didn't have a choice." Lyra's expression softened. "But that's exactly it. You acted without thought for yourself. You protected me when every instinct should have told you to run, and I can't even imagine how painful that must have been." Ethan shrugged, wincing slightly as he shifted. "Pain comes with choices. The important thing is that you're safe." Lyra leaned back, her eyes studying him more openly now. "There's something about humans. Something different. You don't just follow orders. You think, you adapt, you act for reasons that aren't always obvious to others. You surprised me, Ethan Carter. You surprised all of us." Ethan blinked. He had trained for high-pressure situations before, faced threats and enemies. But this reaction from an alien princess was unexpected. "I guess humans have ways of surprising," he said lightly, though inside he felt a mixture of pride and uncertainty. Before Lyra could respond, the door opened again. Queen Alira stepped in, her presence commanding attention immediately. Ethan straightened as the queen's gaze swept over him. Her eyes, violet and glowing faintly in the pale light, seemed to look right through him. "You continue to live, human," she said, her tone calm but unmistakably firm. "That is fortunate for some, though perhaps not for you." Ethan met her gaze steadily. "I am grateful to be alive, Your Majesty." Alira nodded slightly, as if approving the answer. She stepped closer, her movements smooth and deliberate. "I have observed your actions, human. You placed yourself in mortal danger to protect my daughter. That is not a common act among my people, nor is it common among any species I have encountered." Ethan hesitated, unsure how to respond. I didn't think about it. I just acted. I couldn't let her be harmed." The queen studied him, her expression unreadable. "Your species values courage, loyalty, selflessness. These are traits I have long considered rare in the galaxy. And yet here you stand, human, demonstrating them without hesitation. Tell me, do all humans act this way?" Ethan shook his head. "No, not all. But many of us, we try. We fight for each other, for honor, for those who can't defend themselves. I suppose it's in our nature." Elira's gaze lingered on him, and for a moment Ethan felt exposed under her scrutiny. Then she nodded slowly, as if reaching a decision. "Perhaps your presence here is more significant than I first thought. You will remain in the palace while your injuries heal. You will have access to our facilities, our records, and our resources, and you will be observed closely." Ethan blinked. "Observed?" The queen's lips curved into the faintest trace of a smile. "You are extraordinary, human. Extraordinary enough that we must understand the value you bring. And perhaps prepare for the future you may help shape." Lyra watched the exchange silently, her expression a mixture of concern and fascination. Ethan had just fought a war to save her life, and now the queen, who had always seemed untouchable and distant, treated him with a respect that surprised him. "It seems," Lyra said softly, "that your place here may be more permanent than you thought." Ethan managed a small laugh, though it hurt. "I hope not permanent. I have a home. I have people waiting for me on Earth. I can't just stay here forever. Lyra's gaze softened, and for a moment she looked almost like a friend, not a princess. Sometimes the world or the galaxy has other plans for us. Perhaps you are meant to be here, even if only for a time. Ethan didn't answer. He wasn't sure what to say. All he knew was that the bond he had formed with the princess, even in just the briefest moments, was something he hadn't expected. He had trained for missions like this, fought in wars, seen death and destruction. But protecting someone like Lyra, that was different. It left a mark, one he could feel deep in his chest. Over the next days, Ethan's injuries began to heal, though slowly. The medic's technology was advanced, but his body still needed time to recover from the blows he had taken. During this time, he observed the palace and its people. The Zitherans moved with an elegance and grace that he admired, their conversations precise, their customs intricate. Yet despite their sophistication, he noticed small cracks in their society, rigid traditions that sometimes prevented quick action, pride that sometimes interfered with reason. It was a world of beauty and danger intertwined, and he felt both awe and caution as he learned more. Lyra visited him regularly, sometimes to bring news, sometimes to simply talk. Ethan found himself learning about her world, her people, and her challenges. She spoke of her responsibilities, the weight of leadership, and the constant threat of enemies. He listened, offered his perspective, and slowly a bond formed between them. Not romantic, but one of respect and understanding. She had seen bravery before, but she had never seen it like Ethan's, and he, in turn, began to understand that even royalty could be human in her own ways, brave, compassionate, and willing to fight for what mattered. One afternoon, as they walked through a quiet garden filled with glowing plants and soft light, Lyra asked, "Do you ever fear, Ethan? Not for yourself, but for the people you care about?" Ethan considered her question. "Of course. Fear is natural, but fear doesn't mean you stop acting. It just means you need to think, to adapt, and to protect what matters most. I fought for you because I knew the consequences of not acting were far worse." Lyra nodded, absorbing his words. "Your people, they are very different. Brave, but also complicated. You risk so much for others, and yet you expect nothing in return." Ethan shrugged. "Because that's how it should be. People matter more than pride, more than comfort, more than fear. That's what I was taught, and I try to live by it every day." Lyra's eyes softened, and for the first time she smiled genuinely. "I think you are the first human I have truly understood, not as a curiosity, not as an outsider, but as someone real." Their conversations became a small comfort to Ethan, a reminder that even in an alien world, human qualities, courage, loyalty, compassion, could bridge the widest gaps. And for Lyra, Ethan's presence was a revelation. She had always relied on her guards, on her training, on strategy. But this human had shown her a type of courage she had never expected. One that was instinctive, selfless, and completely devoted to protecting others. Meanwhile, Queen Lyra observed quietly from a distance. She had spoken little, but every report, every account of Ethan's actions reached her swiftly. His presence disrupted her expectations. His bravery and humility challenged her assumptions about humans and about what loyalty truly meant. She found herself considering questions she had not asked in decades. What if humans could be allies in ways no one had imagined? What if the courage she had seen in this one soldier was a glimpse of something larger? One evening, Ethan was summoned to a council meeting. He walked into a chamber filled with Zitharan generals, advisors, and the Queen herself. They presented him with the details of the rogue army's movements, seeking his opinion. Ethan listened carefully, then offered strategies that combined human adaptability with Zitharan precision. His insights were unconventional but effective, and slowly the council began to see that his value extended beyond physical courage. He brought intellect, innovation, and a perspective that even the most experienced Zitharan leaders had not considered. Queen Lyra leaned back, studying him intently. "You continue to surprise us, human," she said. "Perhaps there is more to your species than we knew. Your courage is admirable, but your mind is sharper than expected. This combination is rare." Ethan nodded respectfully. "I only do what I can to help. That is all anyone should do, no matter where they come from." The council agreed to incorporate some of his strategies into their defenses, though not without hesitation. Ethan's approach was unfamiliar, but results spoke louder than tradition. The rogue army, he predicted, would not expect humans to act with such creativity, and perhaps that would be the advantage they needed. Ethan Carter tightened his grip on the straps of his backpack as the transport shuttle descended toward Zithera. The alien planet spread below them like a painting. Jagged mountains rose from glowing green plains. Rivers of silver light twisted through deep valleys, and in the distance a massive city sparkled like a cluster of stars. He had read every report he could find about the planet, but no file or video could capture the sense of danger and beauty together. Zithera was alive, but alive in a way that could be both breathtaking and deadly. The shuttle's cabin was quiet except for the hum of engines and the occasional rustle of equipment. Ethan glanced around at the small group of humans and Zytheran guides accompanying him. They were a mix of military experts, engineers, and diplomats, tasked with negotiating peace between two powerful factions on the planet. It was supposed to be a routine mission of observation and advice, but Ethan knew from the tension in the cabin that routine was not the word the locals would use. The Zytheran factions had been at war for decades, and history had proven that even a single misstep could spark a war that spread across the entire planet. He looked out the viewport as the shuttle dipped lower. The city below, the capital of the Zytheran royal family, gleamed with towers of crystalline material that reflected the planet's 3 suns. The architecture was unlike anything he had ever seen on Earth. Each building shimmered with a faint natural light, and the streets were lined with trees that emitted a soft, warm glow. It was beautiful, and yet the feeling in the back of his mind warned him that this beauty masked danger. As the shuttle landed, the doors opened with a hiss, and a wave of humid, fragrant air rushed in. Ethan stepped onto the landing platform, feeling the weight of the planet's slightly stronger gravity. The Zytherans were waiting. Towering, elegant and humanoid but with striking differences. Slightly elongated limbs, luminous eyes, and skin that shimmered in faint tones of silver and blue, they moved with grace and authority. At their head stood the royal guard, their armor sleek and flowing, almost like liquid metal, reflecting the afternoon sun. "Welcome, humans," one of the guards said in perfect galactic common, the universal language used across the galaxy. His voice was calm but carried a weight that suggested power and strict discipline. "The royal family awaits you." Ethan followed the delegation into the city, taking in the sights. The streets were alive with citizens who stopped and stared at the human newcomers. Whispers spread quickly, and Ethan could feel eyes on him as if every gaze were weighing him. Some watched with curiosity, others with suspicion, but none showed immediate hostility. Still, he knew that in a culture with centuries of strict hierarchy and tradition, a human soldier walking among them was unusual. Inside the royal palace, Ethan and the human team were led through vast halls that seemed endless. The walls were carved from the same crystalline material as the city's towers, glowing faintly from within. Statues of past rulers lined the corridors, and intricate murals depicted historical battles and alliances with alien species, including humans, though those images were rare and far between. It was clear that the Zytherans took history seriously, and Ethan couldn't help but feel the weight of every step he took. Finally, they arrived in a large chamber where the royal family awaited. Princess Lyra, young but regal, stood at the center. Her hair shimmered like liquid silver, and her eyes, a deep violet, scanned the humans with careful interest. She carried herself with the poise of someone trained from birth to lead, yet there was a flicker of curiosity in her gaze. Beside her, Queen Elira stood, imposing and composed with a calmness that suggested she had seen decades of both triumph and tragedy. "Humans," the Queen said, her voice resonant and commanding. "You have arrived on our world at a critical time. We hope your presence here is one of peace, for the shadow of war grows ever darker." Ethan stepped forward respectfully. "Your Majesty, we come with the intention to observe, advise, and, if necessary, help protect the peace. Our goal is to ensure that your people, and everyone on Zithera, can live without fear." The Queen's eyes narrowed slightly, as if weighing his words. She did not smile, but the faintest nod suggested approval of his sincerity. "Very well. The City Council and our generals will brief you shortly. For now, know that the situation is volatile. You must be prepared for anything." The briefing began immediately after, with generals outlining the current threats. A rogue alien faction had been launching raids on outlying cities, showing an unprecedented level of coordination and aggression. They were well-armed and ruthless, and intelligence suggested they were preparing for an assault on the capital itself. Ethan listened intently, asking questions and offering suggestions, and he noticed the subtle surprise of the Zytheran commanders at his sharp understanding of battlefield tactics. It was as they were leaving the briefing chamber that the first attack came. The palace alarms blared, echoing through the crystalline halls. Outside, smoke and fire marked the beginning of a massive assault on the capital. Ethan barely had time to react as a horde of heavily armored alien soldiers appeared, cutting through the city's defenses with terrifying efficiency. The royal guards moved quickly to protect the princess, but it became clear that they were outnumbered. Ethan's instincts kicked in. Without thinking, he pushed aside a guard and ran toward Lyra. A massive explosion rocked the plaza outside, and debris flew in every direction. A shard of glowing crystal struck the ground just inches from Lyra, and Ethan dove, throwing himself over her body to shield her from the impact. Pain shot through his side as the shard grazed him, but he barely noticed. Protecting her became the only thing that mattered. The rogue attackers pressed forward, but Ethan kept moving, using his body as both shield and barrier. His human reflexes, honed from years of training on Earth, allowed him to anticipate attacks that seemed strange or unpredictable to the Zytherans. He grabbed Lyra's arm and pulled her to safety, rolling behind a column of crystalline metal. Sparks flew around them as the rogue forces tried to break through. Lyra's eyes were wide with fear and astonishment. You're risking your life for me?" she asked, her voice trembling. Ethan gave her a determined look. "Stay behind me. I won't let anything happen to you." The battle raged on, and Ethan's human ingenuity became apparent. He used the environment to his advantage, knocking down obstacles to block attackers, hurling debris with precise force, and moving with a speed that surprised even the Zytheran guards. Slowly, he began turning the tide in that small section of the battlefield. The Queen, watching from a safe distance, felt something stir within her. She had ruled for decades, and she had seen countless acts of loyalty and courage, but humans were different. Their bravery was raw, instinctive, and completely selfless. Ethan had no reason to protect her daughter, yet he did so without hesitation. There was a fire in his actions, a determination that even her most seasoned warriors rarely displayed. Finally, after what felt like hours but was only minutes, the rogue attackers were forced to retreat. Ethan, breathing heavily, helped Lyra to her feet. She looked at him with a mixture of relief and gratitude, her usual composure shaken. "You saved my life," she said softly. I don't know how to thank you." Ethan shook his head, wincing as the pain in his side reminded him of the injury he had taken. "No thanks needed. Just stay safe. That's enough for me." The Queen approached, her presence commanding attention. "Human," she said, her tone measured. "Your actions today have shown qualities that are rare. Courage, loyalty, and an unwavering sense of duty. You have protected my daughter when even my finest guards could not. Tell me why." Ethan straightened, wincing slightly but meeting her gaze steadily. "Because it's the right thing to do. Because someone's life is more important than fear or risk. Because humans fight for each other, for honor, for duty, and for those who cannot defend themselves." Aelira studied him carefully. There was no deceit, no hidden agenda, only truth. She had seen many warriors, many heroes, but this human, so small compared to her own people, so fragile in appearance, had acted with a courage that defied logic. "Perhaps," she said slowly, "your kind has something we have overlooked." Lyra looked at Ethan with admiration, her fear now replaced by awe. "You're incredible," she whispered. I don't know anyone like you." Ethan merely nodded, feeling the ache in his body, but knowing that the battle had proven something bigger than physical strength. Humans were capable of remarkable heroism, even in alien worlds. And somewhere deep inside, he felt that his presence here was changing more than just the outcome of one battle. It was beginning to change the perception of his entire species. As medics approached to tend to his injuries, Ethan allowed himself a brief moment to breathe. Outside the palace, the city was in chaos, but there was hope. He had protected the princess. He had shown what a human could do, and he had caught the attention of the Queen herself, someone whose judgment shaped the future of a planet. For the first time in his life, Ethan felt the weight of history on his shoulders, and he realized that this was only the beginning. The war on Zythera was far from over, but he was ready to face it. Not just for survival, not just for victory, but for something greater. The chance to prove that. The dawn broke over Zithera like molten gold spilling across jagged mountains. Ethan Carter stood at the edge of the palace walls, overlooking the capital city, now bracing for what promised to be the most dangerous day in its history. The rogue army had grown bolder, their movements more coordinated and ruthless. Every patrol report, every intelligence feed had warned of the impending assault. Yet despite the fear in the air, there was also a sense of readiness. Soldiers lined the streets, traps were set, and the citizens had been evacuated to safer zones. Ethan flexed his fingers, feeling the ache in his body from past battles but also the fire of determination. Today, his courage, intellect, and leadership would be tested like never before. He turned as Princess Lyra approached, dressed in light armor that allowed her freedom of movement while still offering protection. Her violet eyes met his, steady and determined. "Ethan," she said quietly, "I know this is dangerous, but I need you here, not just to fight, but to lead. Our people need you." Ethan gave her a firm nod. "I won't let them down, and I won't let you be harmed either." She reached out and placed a hand briefly on his arm, a gesture of trust and encouragement. "I know," she whispered. "I believe in you." The Queen summoned him next, her presence more commanding than ever. Lyra's eyes studied him, sharp and calculating. "Ethan Carter," she said, "the rogue army approaches with an unprecedented force. Their numbers are vast, their intent clear. They seek not only conquest but destruction. Your strategies and courage have given us hope. Today you will lead a critical section of our defense. Fail, and all will be lost." Ethan met her gaze without flinching. "I understand, Your Majesty. I will do everything in my power to protect this city and your daughter." The Queen's expression softened slightly, just enough for Ethan to notice. "Very well. The city and its people are in your hands. You will have the authority to command your assigned units. Use your judgment wisely." As Ethan moved through the city, preparing his forces, he felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. Soldiers looked to him for guidance, their trust in a human both inspiring and humbling. He issued commands with precision, balancing Zithran discipline with his own understanding of flexibility and adaptability. The first wave of attackers appeared on the horizon as the suns climbed higher. Ethan's team was ready. The ambushes, decoy units, and traps he had helped design were set in perfect positions. The rogue army charged forward, confident in their numbers and strength. But Ethan had calculated their every likely move, predicting patterns of aggression and using their assumptions against them. The battle erupted with a roar. Energy blasts cut through the air, sending sparks of crystal and metal flying. Ethan moved swiftly, guiding troops, adjusting strategies in real time, and using his human instincts to anticipate enemy movements. Zithran soldiers followed his orders, sometimes hesitating at first, but quickly learning that his unconventional tactics saved lives and secured victories. Lyra fought alongside him, her training and courage remarkable. Yet Ethan noticed something extraordinary. The rogue army's soldiers seemed thrown off by the unpredictability of human-led strategies. Time and again, Ethan's adjustments created openings that allowed his team to strike decisively. At one critical moment, a massive squad of enemy attackers breached a key defensive position. Ethan saw the threat immediately, a direct path to the palace gates where civilians and leadership remained vulnerable. Without hesitation, he sprinted forward, drawing enemy fire away from the defenders. His movements were precise, calculated yet instinctive, dodging attacks and positioning himself to block the advance. Lyra followed, her focus unwavering. Together they fought back to back, a human and a princess, their coordination seamless. Ethan's human reflexes and unpredictable tactics complemented her strength and training, forming a partnership that inspired all who witnessed it. Soldiers rallied around them, emboldened by the courage displayed in the face of overwhelming odds. The rogue army unleashed their heaviest weaponry, a massive energy cannon designed to tear through walls and defenses. Ethan assessed the trajectory and realized the weapon would devastate a critical sector unless neutralized immediately. He called for a small team to flank the cannon, using the terrain and his knowledge of Scytheran technology to disable it. The maneuver was risky. Ethan and his team had to move under heavy fire, navigating unstable structures and debris. He led the way, taking the first hit when an enemy projectile struck near his side, knocking him off balance. Pain surged through him, but he refused to falter. With determination and precision, he directed the strike team, neutralizing the cannon before it could destroy the city. Soldiers cheered, though the battle was far from over. Ethan's reputation had spread quickly during the fight. Human courage and ingenuity had proven their worth, turning the tide in moments when defeat seemed certain. Even the rogue army seemed unsettled by the sheer adaptability and unpredictability of a single human leading the defense. Amid the chaos, Lyra was struck by a fragment of energy from a collapsing structure. Ethan reacted instantly, diving to shield her body with his own. Pain erupted in his chest as the impact hit him, but he held strong, ensuring she remained unharmed. "Stay down," he shouted, his voice carrying above the roar of battle. "I've got you." The Queen observed from a high vantage point, her expression a mixture of fear and awe. Ethan's actions went beyond courage. They were almost legendary. He was not simply fighting, he was saving lives, inspiring soldiers, and demonstrating qualities that no Scytheran had ever displayed in combination: bravery, selflessness, and the ability to think and adapt under extreme pressure. Hours passed in a blur of combat. Ethan moved tirelessly, coordinating defenses, rescuing civilians, and personally confronting enemy leaders when opportunities arose. The rogue army, confident in their overwhelming numbers, found themselves repeatedly outmaneuvered. The city's defenses, combined with Ethan's human tactics, began to crumble their confidence. As dusk approached, the final wave of the rogue army descended on the palace gates. Ethan knew this confrontation would decide the fate of the capital. He gathered his troops, now battle-hardened and inspired, and prepared for the decisive fight. "This is it," he said, his voice steady despite exhaustion. "Hold your ground. Protect each other. Remember what we fight for." The battle raged, energy beams and weapons clashing in a spectacular display. Ethan led charges, set traps, and rescued soldiers who were pinned under debris. His presence turned fear into courage, confusion into coordinated action. Time and again, he placed himself in harm's way to ensure the safety of others, using every skill and instinct at his disposal. At a critical moment, a massive enemy commander broke through the outer defenses, heading straight for the palace where civilians were sheltered. Ethan intercepted, engaging in close combat. His human reflexes and ingenuity allowed him to anticipate the commander's moves, turning their strength against them. With a combination of force and strategy, he incapacitated the enemy, preventing what could have been a catastrophic breach. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the rogue army began to retreat. Their command structure disrupted, their morale shattered, and their forces diminished. They had no choice but to fall back. Cheers erupted across the battlefield as survivors regrouped. Soldiers embraced and civilians emerged from hiding, grateful and in awe of the courage that had saved them. Lyra ran to Ethan, tears in her eyes. You saved us," she said, her voice shaking. "You saved everyone." Ethan, exhausted and battered, could only nod. "We saved everyone, together. You fought with courage too. We all did this." The Queen descended from her observation point, her expression unreadable at first. Then, slowly, she approached Ethan. "Ethan Carter," she said, her voice steady, carrying authority and respect. "You have done what no one else could. You have saved my daughter, my city, and my people. Your courage, your intellect, and your selflessness. They are unparalleled. I would have thought humans fragile, unfit for the trials of the galaxy. Yet you have proven me wrong." Ethan bowed slightly. "I only did what I could, Your Majesty. That is all anyone should do." Aelira's gaze softened, though her tone remained firm. "Your actions bind you to this world. Not by chains, but by honor, by necessity. You have saved Scythera, and now You will remain under my protection and guidance until your place here is fully understood. You are no longer a visitor. You are part of the history of this planet." Ethan felt a mixture of pride, relief, and unease. He had never sought recognition or power, yet here he stood, recognized as more than a soldier, more than a human, an integral figure in the survival of an entire world. Lyra took his hand, her touch steady and reassuring. "You're not just a hero, Ethan. You're proof of what humans can do. And now, you're part of Zythera too. That's something no one can take away." As the sun set over the city, bathing it in gold and silver light, Ethan knew that his journey had changed everything. He had faced impossible odds, protected the innocent, and earned the respect of a queen and her people. Humanity, through him, had shown its worth in a galaxy filled with powerful and alien forces. And somewhere deep within the palace, Queen Elira began planning the next steps. Ethan. The capital of Zythera was finally quiet. The rogue army had been defeated, scattered across the mountains, and their remaining forces in retreat. Soldiers and citizens alike were beginning to rebuild, restoring walls, repairing energy barriers, and clearing the streets of debris. But even amidst the recovery, Ethan Carter felt the weight of what had happened pressing on him. He had fought beyond exhaustion, seen lives threatened, and protected Princess Lyra with his own body more than once. And now, despite the victory, he sensed that his journey on Zythera was far from over. Princess Lyra approached him as he walked through the main plaza, the soft glow of the setting suns casting long shadows behind her. Her face bore traces of fatigue, but her eyes were steady, focused, and full of respect. "Ethan," she said quietly, "you've done more than any of us could have imagined. You saved this city, our people, me." Ethan shook his head, his chest still sore from the battle. "I didn't do it alone. Everyone fought bravely. You fought bravely. We all did what we had to do. That's what matters." Lyra smiled faintly, but there was a seriousness in her gaze that made him pause. "You think this is over, but the Queen? She will not let you leave, will she?" Ethan's jaw tightened slightly. He had known this moment would come, but hearing it confirmed made the reality sink in. "I suppose not," he admitted. "I saved her daughter, the city, and now apparently I am bound by honor or duty. I understand why. I just didn't expect it to feel so final." Lyra reached out, placing a hand on his arm. "It's not just duty, Ethan. It's recognition of what you are. A human who has shown us something we never fully believed in. Courage, intelligence, selflessness. Qualities that the Zytherans admire but rarely see combined. The Queen will ensure you remain, because she knows the galaxy will not see another like you." Ethan looked at her, his mind racing. He had come to Zythera as a soldier, trained for survival and protection. He had never sought power, recognition, or influence. Yet here he stood, respected by a queen, trusted by soldiers, and admired by a princess. "I never wanted to be bound to this world," he said quietly. "I just wanted to protect people and survive. I didn't know saving one princess would change everything." Lyra's eyes softened. "Sometimes doing the right thing has consequences we cannot predict. But what you have done will be remembered forever, not just by Zythera, but by every being who hears your story." That evening, Queen Elira summoned Ethan to her private chamber. The room was grand and illuminated by soft, ambient light. Her violet eyes studied him carefully, measuring every expression. "Ethan Carter," she began, her voice calm but firm, "you have proven your worth beyond any doubt. You have saved my daughter, my city, and my people. The rogue army underestimated you, and their defeat is a testament to human courage and ingenuity." Ethan bowed slightly. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I only did what I could." The Queen's gaze lingered on him. "Your actions have changed how I see humans, Ethan. They are not merely fragile creatures from a distant world. They are capable of courage, intelligence, and loyalty beyond expectation. You have demonstrated this more than anyone could have imagined." Ethan felt a strange mixture of pride and humility. He had fought, strategized, and risked his life, but he had never thought of it as extraordinary, only necessary. "I am glad my actions were of use," he said softly. Elira took a deep breath, then continued. "Because of what you have done and because of what you represent, you will remain on Zythera, not as a prisoner, but as a respected figure, bound by honor to this planet. You will assist in rebuilding, in training, and in preparing for any future threats. You will have freedom within these walls, but you will not leave until your role is fully understood. Ethan nodded slowly, realizing that this was both recognition and responsibility. He was no longer just a visitor. He was part of the history of Zithera, a symbol of what humanity could offer the galaxy. I understand, Your Majesty. I accept. The Queen's expression softened slightly, almost imperceptibly. Good. I trust that you will continue to act with the courage, intelligence, and selflessness that you have shown. As Ethan left the chamber, Lyra met him in the hallway. So it's official, she said, half smiling. You're part of Zithera now. Ethan exhaled, a mixture of relief and resignation. It seems so, but I won't complain. I know why it's necessary, I just hope I can live up to what the Queen expects. You already have, Lyra said quietly, more than anyone could have imagined. Over the following weeks, Ethan helped the Zitherans rebuild. He trained soldiers, advised on defense strategies, and coordinated with the Council to establish new protocols for city safety. His methods were unconventional but highly effective. Soldiers learned to anticipate threats in ways they had never considered, and the princess often accompanied him, learning tactics, observing, and contributing insights from her perspective. The citizens, once fearful, now celebrated him. Children told stories of the human who had saved their city, and elders spoke of his courage with reverence. Even the Queen's advisors, initially skeptical, began to accept his methods, realizing that human thinking, adaptable, instinctive, and selfless, was a valuable asset to Zithera. Ethan also spent time with Princess Lyra, discussing the future of the city, the importance of unity, and the lessons learned from the rogue army's attacks. Their conversations were not just tactical, they were human, sharing hopes, fears, and understanding across the divide of species and culture. Lyra came to see Ethan not just as a protector, but as a teacher, a strategist, and a friend whose presence had altered her world forever. One day, as they walked through a garden restored after the battles, Lyra spoke quietly. Ethan, do you ever regret coming here? He shook his head. No, I've seen what humans can do, and I've seen how courage and intelligence can change a world. I came to protect you, yes, but I stayed because this city, these people, they needed someone who could think, act, and inspire. And I guess I found that I could. Lyra smiled, her eyes reflecting the soft light of the suns. You've done more than anyone could have imagined. You've given Zithera hope, courage, and a reason to believe in the impossible, and you've given me something I didn't know I needed. A human who stands beside me not as a subject, not as a soldier, but as a partner in thought and action. Ethan felt a warmth in his chest. He had never expected to form such a bond, yet it felt natural, grounded in respect, trust, and shared experience. I'll continue to stand here, Lyra. Not because I have to, but because I want to ensure that this city, your people, everyone remains safe and strong. The Queen summoned him once more to discuss long-term plans. Ethan Carter, she said, her tone carrying both authority and respect. You have proven humanity's worth beyond any doubt. Your courage, intellect, and selflessness have saved my city. You will remain on Zithera, not merely as a human, but as a symbol of what your species can offer the galaxy. You have earned a place in our history that no one can take from you. Ethan bowed. Thank you, Your Majesty. I will continue to serve and protect as best as I can. The Queen's gaze softened as she studied him. You are not just a soldier, Ethan. You are a bridge between worlds. And in times to come, that bridge may be the most valuable asset Zithera possesses. Ethan left the chamber with a sense of purpose deeper than ever before. He had started as a soldier, trained for survival and protection. He had faced impossible odds, saved lives, and altered the course of an alien world's history. Now he was more than that, a symbol, a teacher, and a living testament to humanity's potential. Princess Lyra joined him again as they walked through the restored streets, citizens waving in recognition and gratitude. Ethan, she said softly, you've done more than save a city. You've given hope. You've changed how we see ourselves and our world, and you've shown that humans are more than we ever expected. Ethan nodded, looking at the bustling streets, the restored buildings, and the faces of the people he had protected. Humans have courage, Lyra. We adapt, we fight, and we care. That's what I've tried to show them. And I will continue to do so. No matter where I am, no matter the world, that's who we are. Lyra smiled, a mixture of pride and relief in her expression. And because of you, Zithera will always remember that truth. You've proven what humans can do, and that proof will remain long after today. As the sun set over the capital, Ethan felt the weight of the battles behind him, the responsibilities ahead, and the legacy he had begun to forge. He had faced death, defied expectations, and shown that courage, intelligence, and selflessness were qualities that transcended species. Humanity had earned a place in the galaxy, and through his actions, Ethan Carter had ensured that Zithera, and perhaps the universe, would never forget it. And somewhere in the quiet halls of the palace, Queen Illyra made plans for the future, knowing that the human who had saved her world would remain by her side. Not as a prisoner, but as a hero, a teacher, and a symbol of humanity's undeniable worth.